The shitty marketers are on to us.
Yeah.
They're like, here's some people we might be able to swindle.
Ooh, we're gonna get on their coattails
now
before they take off.
Yeah. No. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Give us your money, please.
You better watch out. You better watch out. You better watch out. You better
just keep watching out. Oh my God. I was thinking about in relation to today. Did you ever watch Third Rock from the Sun? Not 30 Rock. I know you.
No, I did. Yeah. I did watch. Not as much of it, but okay. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I was thinking about. There's an episode. One of the characters is reading this book as part of his GED, going through the exam, whatever. And they're reading Little Women, except he doesn't want to read it. He's going to go to the video store and check out the video, you know? But then they don't have the video. The plan doesn't work. And he meets with his study group and clearly knows nothing about the story or anything about it. He's like, so those women were pretty little. It's pretty much all I want to say after I walk out of any adaptation of this now.
That's funny.
Those women were pretty little.
And it makes me think of that Simpsons joke when Moe's reading, they were little women, yeah. Little women.
It is amazing just how entrenched in the culture this shit is.
Yeah.
Like once you start looking for Little Women references, they're actually
everyone's heard of Little Women.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's one of our oldest American stories, you know? Well, hang on. Hey, Chelsea.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I got quinoa all up in my teeth.
No,
hey,
all good.
Hey, Victoria.
You know what I need to hurry up and get right now?
Why?
A breath of fresh movie.
Oh, good.
I know. Let's just get to it.
Yeah, let's do it.
That's a movie I like to see.
This is a Breath of Fresh Movie, a podcast where every week we watch a movie neither one of us has ever heard of before. Or no, that's not it. Oh my God.
Wait, no.
Wait. Okay, let me start that over. This is a Breath of Fresh Movie, a weekly podcast where I, Victoria Harley,
and I, Chelsea Pope,
we watch a movie neither one of us has seen, and then we talk about
That's
it.
right.
We have heard of it.
Yeah.
But we haven't seen it.
Who hasn't heard of Little Women?
I mean, yeah, right?
I guess babies.
Well, there's a lot of things they haven't heard of.
Yeah.
Babies. Little Women, and of course they're did I get to it yet? That today's movie is Little Women?
Oh yeah, today's movie is specifically the Greta Gerwig.
Yes, the 2019 period coming of age drama, Little Women. This is a book that has been everywhere. We were just saying, like, references abound. The plot of the book is really the lives of the four March sisters, Jo, Meg, Beth, and Amy. It details their passage from childhood to adulthood. This movie's logline, though, is a little different. In that, like, this movie doesn't follow a linear storyline.
No.
So it begins in adulthood, and everything is a flashback.
Yeah.
So the logline for the film,
Jo March has to think about her entire life before she sells this book.
Exactly. It's exactly it. That's amazing. That might be the title.
Yeah, it's great.
In the years after the Civil War, Jo March lives in New York and makes her living as a writer, while her sister Amy studies painting in Paris. Amy has a chance encounter with Theodore, a childhood crush who proposed to Jo, but it was ultimately rejected. Their oldest sibling, Meg, is married to a school teacher, and her shy sister, Beth, develops a devastating illness that brings the family back together. And that kind of is the movie's plot. Like, in a way, it does center on Beth a little more, like, and I do think
she's like the catalyst, really.
She's the catalyst,
right,
exactly.
As stated.
Anyway, first impressions.
You know what? I liked it more than I thought I would. I don't have a lot of... I guess I have some preconceived biases against some of the more like femme-centric fare. Like things that can be categorized as like... Yeah. Like I didn't really watch a lot of Jane Austen films or this I didn't engage with and I kind of lump this a little bit in my broad smooth brain with stuff like Gilmore Girls and you know what I mean, like very kind of
I think the term chick lit gets thrown around in that world, and I definitely avoided Jane Austen for a long time. I think because I was suspicious of it. I didn't want to be seen enjoying it. I had a copy of the 1994 version of Little Women on tape, and it was one of those movies that, like, I liked it, I watched it, but I knew my brothers would always kind of make fun of me for watching it. Like, oh, it's one of these girls' movies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like no boy should ever be caught dead watching it.
A kissing book?
Or it's like, it was the same way with like The Secret Garden and some other things. It was like,
oh yes, you could definitely
even though those are actually really good films with interesting, complex themes, and just because it's not like a male-centered lead, it's like, no, we can't access that. Yeah. Or we refuse. We won't be caught accessing that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's not to like, my brothers were perfectly good boys growing up, but like, older brothers are older brothers. Like they're gonna rouse you for something. So, and I was pretty well good at keeping up with being a tomboy, like Joe. But you know, it's like
we were conditioned to, you know, with certain types of, you know, interests and biases, you know, or whatever, and you know, they would naturally be less inclined to watch that because that's you know,
it's just interesting.
They're told that's not the kind of stuff they should be liking.
Yeah, it's just so funny. It reminds me of like this one time I told this dude, I was volunteering in a movie theater, and I told this guy, like, you know what, I'm thinking that I'm gonna start, like, for a year maybe I'll just read like nothing but, you know, female authors. And they were like, well, won't it get boring after a while? And it's like, do you even listen to what you just like? Do you even hear yourself? Like, so just all male authors is the default?
Yeah, I wonder what they thought when you had said just female authors. I wonder if they just if they only thought it was going to be like
Jane Austen.
Chick lit. A chick lick.
That's something else.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. Either like chick lit or like deep feminist theory, like heavy fair. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess just the idea that there couldn't be anything more, you know,
I think it's frustrating that like just that like it's still rewarded to shun a like female centered anything.
Right. Oh, that's what it's, you know,
it's women's crap lesser, or whatever. It's like women, you know, anyway.
And how fitting.
Yes. Yeah. I was thinking about that as like, I mean, I watched this on Monday.
Yeah.
And then my company laid off 120 people on Wednesday.
Awesome.
And then on Thursday night, the SCOTUS decision came down, and today is Friday.
And today is
And I was so struck by this movie, like just my quick first impressions. Like I felt the limitations so clearly. Yes. I felt the limitations in the things like keeping these women honed in or like hemmed in. Like I could feel the fences. Like that was so overwhelming. I also really felt the most emotional during the moment where they went to the poor family on Christmas morning. Yeah. That was like, that shocked me how much that really like got me. Like that was like astounding to just think about how difficult like life really was for most people, and that we're actually looking at a pretty well-off family, even though they're talking about how it's so dreadful to be poor. Yes. You know, and it's like, but then you see poor, and it's like, Jesus, can you imagine? Like just my empathy meter must have just been running really high at that moment, because it was like, fuck. Like,
we're perfectly capable of keeping a maid. Like I think about that, like in Pride and Prejudice. That kind of thing. It's like there's poor, but then there's like poor. Then
there's like we have kids all in one room shack together. We're getting sick. Like, I mean, that was just that portrait of poverty was staggering. Like that really got me. I also, and this is me getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I want to get on this best supporting discussion real quick. I didn't realize till I got to the credits at the end that the neighbor was played by Chris Cooper, like the old man. And I know this is a movie about women, so it's kind of fucked for me to be like best supporting player. Let me choose a man. Yeah. But I thought Chris Cooper was so great in this. Yeah. That moment where he comes down the stairs and he's listening to Beth playing the piano, and he's like, he can't actually emote except in private in that way. And I felt his limitations. I felt his fences and his walls. Yeah. And it just was like, it showed the traps of gender could exist for both people.
That's right.
We definitely see it more for the women, but that, and I was like, this guy is so familiar. Who is this? I'm like, oh fuck, that was Chris Cooper. He was great.
No, that's a great choice for best supporting.
That's my best supporting choice.
I respect that a lot.
Yeah. Do you have one, or do we want to mull on it?
Yeah. Well,
you can come back.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to come up naturally about it for like a tiny hot second. Although I will say, like just thinking in terms of some of like the male characters or how they're portrayed, I liked that it wasn't so black and white. Like I think all of the characters had a roundedness to them where they felt like you could find a sense of like sympathy or understanding and This is a reach for me to be saying all of this and then going, I actually thought that there were some interesting moments with the publisher.
Yeah.
I actually thought, he of course, in that he wasn't without condescension, but it was not so cartoonishly like, book or whatever.
He wasn't like a moralist. Like he wasn't like, it has to be this way because that's the right thing.
Yeah,
he wasn't like it sells.
He wasn't like the broadest caricature. I was like, I kind of like that there was a little more like he was just like very pragmatic,
incredibly pragmatic. He reminded me of a combination of like any editor you've ever had, if you've ever had an editor, but also like that one teacher or professor that like you always felt like they hated everybody, but like you knew that if you earned like their approval or their good grade or whatever, that like
women's struggles.
I know, right? Isn't that so sad? But I think there's something about the way he slams those pages down that she's kind of like, oh, this isn't going well. Yeah, and it turns out no, this is just like I'm this brusque with anyone. And it's so obvious that she's not somebody's agent or intermediate. It's so obvious that she's the writer. I mean, it's like any kind of lets her do it.
I like that too. I kind of liked that relationship as well. It didn't feel too.
It could have been way more condescending.
It could have been way more condescending, and it actually did. There was a little bit of endearment. I don't want us to spend too much time focusing on this. Like, all it takes is one good man.
No,
like no. Like Hidden Figures type. Like, we'll let her into the. The thing that didn't happen.
No, like, can't. No, I hear you.
And that wasn't, don't be that gratuitous. No.
I mean, there's so many details.
It's also all the women I would argue are main cast. Like
they are all main cast.
I almost wouldn't even say that even like Meryl Streep or Laura Dern, who are not as
prominent,
as
still
prominent.
Main cast,
I still think,
like they're main cast because I feel like in no way can you adapt this movie without them.
Right.
Like, and I mean, I guess you could say that about some of the neighbor or some of these other people we're talking about, but like, I don't know. There's something. I don't know. Yeah, that's the thing that's funny too, is a lot of the people who ended up in this cast like didn't even audition. They more or less were just like, so I'm gonna be the battle axe, and that was Meryl Streep basically talking about like, so write me a good, what's her name, Aunt March, whatever.
March,
I don't,
or something. Did
we ever get her first name?
I don't remember her name. She was She was the manipulative grandma character.
I mean, and yet, like, even her character was more understandable. Like,
yeah, she was. I mean, you see what she's thinking when she's like looking at Amy.
Yes,
right? Like, I can see why she.
Yeah, she's gonna be the one who saves her family because no one else has married up, and like, no, I think there's something. They don't, these characters aren't cruel with no reason,
right?
Like, and if they seem cruel, it's like, no, it's because look at how few avenues are really open. Mm-hmm. And of all the criticism and sort of reviews I saw, there were a lot of people celebrating this vindication of Amy's character because she's often portrayed as just this really vain, spoiled little sister. And she articulates, that whole speech, that scene about the, where she's in her painting.
She has one of the best. She has one of the best monologues.
Yeah, and that was written, for the screen. It's not taken directly out of the book, but it kind of made Amy a parallel protagonist to Jo. Like they were on much more equal footing. And her marrying Laurie, actually, they created a good agency for them both for that to actually make sense and for them to be right.
It was understandable, although I don't. I was still, like, I don't.
Well, it's one of the big.
It's a tough one.
It's one of the big things that fans felt like. Why would Alcott do this to Jo? Why would she do this to her? Why would she like?
Yeah.
And I do have an interesting note about that, which is that this book was written in 2 parts. Mm-hmm. The first part came out. And Alcott got tons and tons of letters. Like, people were like, oh, this is so good. We love it. We love it. And, they wanted more and more of all the characters and all that. But they really were just more interested in who Jo was going to marry.
Yeah. Who's she going to end up with?
Yeah. That was like the main concern. And I had like a letter.
That's a lot.
Alcott, in a letter to a friend, said, girls write to ask who the little women will marry, as if that's the only end and aim of a woman's life. I won't marry Jo to Laurie to please anyone.
There you go.
Her deciding to marry Jo to the German professor Barr, or whatever you say, Barr, was basically just a big fuck you to not just like the fans, but the publisher, who insisted that your character can't end a spinster. So just like in the movie. I
really liked that. I liked the meta.
Yeah, I did too, actually.
Moments. And there's quite a bit of that in this.
Yeah, it was surprising. I mean, the fact that
it's a very self-aware movie.
It was very self-aware in that, it had that. but it wasn't so self-aware that I was annoyed. You know, sometimes
I think it kind of towed the line a little bit for me. I felt like there was like one moment when the sisters are walking all together at the end, and I can't. And now it went out my head what Joe's specifically talking about with her book or something, and she's saying, oh, I can't remember now. I just remember that moment felt a little bit on the nose, although I was like, oh, I see that. I see why it's there though. Like I wouldn't try to argue to cut it or anything, but there were a couple of moments that felt like a little bit on the nose like that for me.
No, I completely agree. I completely agree. Like as much as I think Amy's, that speech we referred to earlier, I think was good. I think that took the line.
But you're right. It is a little bit heavy-handed in a sense.
There's also another one that happens though between Jo and her mother, Marmee, and it's like, that one was too much for me. I just got hit over the head with the message of this movie. Like you just had your character state it, and I was already.
You need to forgive.
Yeah, it wasn't
a little. There was some of that. Like I don't know.
There was that, but it was just like she makes this kind of impassioned speech about women who having these souls and these minds, and it's just like
women.
That's like the whole movie, you know. And I don't care how long they spent with dialect coaches. The accents were all over the place.
Oh my gosh. It's like camp how bad the accents are for everybody in this movie.
It's rough.
It's so bad.
Laura Dern, I love her, but she's not even trying.
Laura Dern, well, it's like all of the American accents when they're happening are like very modern sounding. And then you can tell it's like Saoirse, she's kind of trying to straddle like very hyper pronounced, but the American accent I at least have gotten used to of hers is the the Ladybird one, which is, I think she actually did a pretty good job in that movie, but she has to lean into like a pretty valley, she can kind of play like that, that age. And then when you have to do America, but at this time period, it's
awkward.
And Emma Watson. Oh my God, there was that one scene where they're like performing the play and she's doing the English accent, but they're trying to pretend it's a bit, which is why then Saoirse right after starts talking in a weird accent. But they just wanted to be like, oh, we'll give you a break on the accent work in this scene, okay? You just do you, girl.
Yeah, I mean, they spend time with like dialect coaches and also etiquette coaches. There was like about a period of, I think, how many weeks was it? I think it was like 2 weeks rehearsal or something like that, which is kind of unheard of for movies because like usually, you don't rehearse at all.
Well, it's tough because it's hard to get it'll take you out of the movie when that gets too distracting, which at times, especially the scenes for Emma Watson, I hate to keep I don't want to punch down too much because it is a thing she was
kind of hard to watch in this.
She's tough. She's a tough watch for me, kind of in hot take. Like she don't got the chops for me.
Yeah.
She is Hermione.
Yeah.
You know? So there's that, but then you drop her into kind of anything. I don't know. I guess I haven't watched that many other, but I'd watch like Perks of Being a Wallflower, My Week with Marilyn, Beauty and the Beast, and this. So I guess not that many, but a handful of things now. A small handful, grant you, but enough where I just like, she's always, it just takes me out of it.
Yeah, she seems to have a setting. I mean, I don't know. I think I've seen her more outside of film, like talking about, I don't know, what was that fur oil we were talking about last week?
Oh yeah, she got the pube
oil. She's
just very, fine. Get the bag.
The bag for the vag. I hate this like word brand, but I feel like her brand is very consciously feminist, and it's like I'm always just a little suspicious of. It's shitty of me. It's just that I'm like, she has this kind of like certainty and poise and confidence about issues that it's like real nice, but you just feel like the epitome of the white feminist, I'm being really shitty, I guess.
No, I get, what I'll say to that is, and there's a really great YouTube video. I think it's by Sideways, or if you're a YouTube essay fan, you'll definitely know who I'm probably talking about because he drags a lot of the modern Disney musicals, and he specifically goes after the Beauty and the Beast one about how yes, the music is worse and here's why. And he's not just saying, oh, she's like a bad singer or whatever, but like on the fundamental level of her, like the point of her casting is that it was like a signifier. It was a billboard of the sort of like what she represents matters more than her actually being able to fulfill the role of Belle. So and it's not that this is obviously like supposed to be some big Oscar worthy role. Like, let's be real. It doesn't require that much, but like they weren't thinking in terms of acting. They weren't thinking in terms of singing.
No, she was just like a symbolic object.
I have to kind of think, especially in light of the role that she, in a sense, I mean, you know, you can make an argument. Okay, yeah, this is. She actually is kind of going again, like she's the daughter that wants to get married. She's kind of, or that she wants to kind of do the domestic, quiet, like small life, you know, or whatever, you know, which
is betrayal.
Is less, not as much of a modern progressive feminist kind of ideal in certain aspects. And she's telling Joe, respect my dream and stuff. But I do feel like it is a little like the casting for her, like they could have. They could have done something else. Now I feel like we started by praising the dude.
I know, and now we're tearing the women apart.
We're dragging this like.
Well, I will just mention that initially Emma Stone was going to play that role.
I think that would have been good.
I think she would have been lovely.
I think she would have been really good.
I also think she kind of would have resembled the family a little more. Not that that's like always the biggest issue, but like.
No, but it does kind of take. It doesn't feel like it's all the more like feeds into my case with Emma Watson that she's cast because of what she represents more than her actually being able to adequately fulfill the role.
Yeah, in fact, like of all the discussions about people who got involved, it was like she flew out to meet Gerwig, and I think in one of the interviews or reports I saw about this, they were like, oh, and immediately they started clicking over feminism. I was like, well, of course.
Sure.
Of course. What else?
So of course you love what it represents, but it's going to take you out in the movie when somebody is not adequately like Emma Watson. Everything I've seen her now in, with the exception of her playing Hermione, because Emma Watson equals her. Like she literally is. I mean, she that was in real life.
Starred into that. Like,
yeah,
you know,
and that the character's kind of like she grew up into that exactly. Child starred into it in a sense. So sure, her brand was able to be shaped as she grew up into that.
Yeah.
Not that she's disingenuous. I don't want to say anything she's doing is disingenuous.
No,
it's great. It's great what she's done.
It's so tough. I mean, because like I feel this way. It's like I think what's important to remember is like it's not a coalition if you all agree on everything. Like you don't have to agree with people to get the work done. I appreciate the things she does. I can still take issue with her.
I can still just say that
as somebody in our industry.
It's a distraction, and it kind of takes away from the movie at times because her acting falls a little short. Her accent is. I
mean, also just like mess. Again, the other. I mean, I know it's funny. Eliza Scanlon, is that her name? Yeah, I think, who played Beth. She was in Sharp Objects.
Gotcha.
And she was like an evil fucking witch.
I mean, I really liked her in that. And
this was such a different, like a gentle alternative for her. I liked that.
I thought she was great in a sense. I
mean, I thought, you know, I mean, Meryl Streep was great, of course. Yeah. I mean, they're all great. I don't want to, you know, this is a cast that also is like multi-generational.
Yeah.
And it was a very collaborative process from what I understand. It deserves credit for being shot entirely in Massachusetts.
Yeah. And it's gorgeous.
It's beautiful.
So gorgeous.
Even the Paris scenes, they actually used Harvard's Arboretum for that. So I fucking love that.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Because it looked like they were just on a college campus.
It did a little bit. Yeah. But I did love how.
But like a very nice one.
Oh, and I loved how full the park was of people.
Yeah.
Like it's like, God, you never see that many people in the park now.
I know that's not a thing anymore to go out.
I think it is in Europe because I remember going once over during spring to Amsterdam, and it was like the park was choked with people. Yeah. Like everybody was out, and I'm like, oh, it's just us.
America, our culture doesn't really. There's capitalism.
Gotta work. Greta Gerwig was pregnant during this filming, and she kept it. She discovered, I guess, during the filming, and then didn't tell anybody because she didn't want it to be part of the story. But that meant that the editing had to be completed in a much shorter timeline because...
Interesting.
Usually you get about 10 weeks. I guess they did it in 7, although I read a couple of different numbers, but that seemed the closest thing to accurate. Somewhere it was
I wonder if the extra 3 weeks would have made a difference at all.
I don't know
because it is like 2.5 hours.
Oh yeah,
the length was something that caused reproach on my end initially, and I'm sure for a number of others who haven't seen it, I feel like
I was a little bit like, oh fuck, this movie's over 2 hours.
It's gonna be a long one.
But you know what? It moves well, and
it does,
and also for a 2.5 or 2 hour movie, it's like getting it done in that few weeks is like pretty impressive.
Pretty good. And like everything.
Like she knew what she wanted, I guess is really what I'm saying.
And it's very engaging. And even me being like, you know, it is long, but I am not totally sure where you would want to cut.
I don't know what you would
without
cut.
losing
No, you need
some
it.
stuff that's kind of important for the, because part of me thinks maybe, you know, the stuff between Amy and Laurie in Paris. And I'm like, well, no, that's kind of necessary if you want to be able to humanize her and justify that a little bit better. And it serves the story because you're really creating these multifaceted women, and you know, she's this foil to Joe, but their relationship is like paramount, is like, I would argue, kind of like the forefront one, even though hers with Beth is like the catalyst with a lot of like
they're
the
all important
action of the story, but
yeah, definitely Joe and Amy ended up on more equal footing, and Meg and Beth are kind of these like sort of secondary somewhat, you know, like they're not secondary, but they kind of are, you know.
I mean, yeah, I guess, and
not just because one of them dies.
Well,
by the way, the entire cast got strep throat at one point during filming this, which I'm like, that literally is what Beth gets, right? That like eventually like kills her.
How fitting.
Very fitting. I want to mention also that the day after Gerwig submitted her like final or her director's cut, she gave birth.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Look at that. And it's like look at all like the theme. It all like kind of lines up.
It all lines up, girl.
You know, the book. And,
I know. It's insane. People were like, why was she wearing such baggy clothes in summer? We didn't understand it. She was wearing so many layers.
Yeah.
Oh, now we know. I just want to mention that there were 75 principal costumes. So for all these important people, in each one of these things,
a lot of pretty dresses.
Oh, many pretty dresses.
A lot of pretty dresses.
Each one of these costumes took about 40 hours to make. Yeah. So that's approximately 3,000 hours of labor for the costume department. Man. That's 125 24-hour days. Yeah. That would be if one person did it. Obviously not one person. Also, one of the styles that Gerwig insisted on for sort of like this whole thing is done right in flashback, which is kind of genius because it means it's already gone. You know, the childhood's already slipped away. It's like, and it's only remembered, and that's it's brutal. Like,
it is very, that's very heartbreaking. So, like her saying, you know, how much she misses things, and then the parallel to when she wakes up, both times the bed's empty, and she's, you know, and the two different meanings there, and it is very it did give me that feeling of melancholy over the lost, you know, path, like you can't go back.
And yet this movie was kind of us experiencing the journey backwards and forwards. Like it was very Proustian in that way, that like things are only remembered kind of like, I mean, because
or that's all, I guess, in a sense that like that's all you can be left with. That's all you're ultimately left with.
And that like your like narrative in the present doesn't stay in the present. It jumps back into these moments in the past, right?
Yes.
Like, so like what you just said, that waking up in the bed the one time, and then it means that like
it's like poetry. It rhymes.
It is.
Thanks, George Lucas.
It's like poetry. Exactly.
You know, it rhymes.
You know, the cameras are different. Like when they're in childhood scenes, it's like Gerwig said she wanted it to be like a fifth sister, like swirling and dancing around. You really do feel that motion and movement. And it's like such a wonderful lived in, warm place. And it's the total opposite for the scenes in adulthood. Everything is like locked, steady.
It's much drier. It's much,
It's not as fluid and fun. Like, you know, we're stuck in our roles. So there's all kinds of stuff going on. And people really praised it for like sort of Trojan horsing some interesting ideas into like a fairly studio-y movie. I mean, this was Sony Pictures decided to start making this like back in 2013. They were like, we're going to adapt this again. And it took 3 more years before Gerwig, I guess, heard about it, and she grew up reading this book, loving this book, so she was like, oh, I want to write the screenplay. And so she did. But then I think 2 years later, you know, at this point she just directed Lady Bird and it got all that Oscar attention. Oh, guess who they want to direct this? They're going to have Greta Gerwig do it too. It couldn't have happened to a better person, I feel like, because I mean, maybe there could, but the fact is she's a super fan of this book. Like she read it a lot as a kid. It's part of what inspired her. So I think like, you know, a fan, that is the appropriate person, you know, and I don't,
and it shows.
And I think she understood what the problem with the book's ending is. Like she understood that Alcott herself did not endorse her own ending.
It's one of my favorite scenes. I like how how sort of seemingly, I'm like, oh, it seems like it's going in this particular, then it cuts out and the music stops, and this is the publisher being like,
what she can't, so how does it end? Like, who does she marry? She doesn't.
She doesn't.
No. This movie, or this film, or this book has been adapted 7 times: 1917, 1918, 1933, 1949, 1994, and 2019. Masterpiece did a version in 2018. There was a Japanese TV animated series called Four Sisters of Young Grass. I like that name.
Four Sisters of Young Grass.
I like that. So
too.
poetic.
I like that.
The one from 33 had Katharine Hepburn and was directed by George Cukor, one of our faves. The one in 49 was in color, very much a studio system film, but Liz Taylor was Amy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, child star.
There you go.
Yeah. And Janet Leigh, the woman who gets stabbed to death in Psycho, was Meg. So that's cool. What else we got? Oh, there were tons of TV adaptations too, including one in which William Shatner was Professor Barr, which I'm like, several adaptations, a CBS musical in the 50s, several BBC miniseries, Broadway plays, ballets, operas. I mean, this thing has been... I don't think there's a concept album, but there probably is somewhere. I'm just not aware of it.
Yeah.
And
I didn't know Little Women's been a musical, hasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Wait, right?
Yes, it has.
I mean, I don't know it. I don't know that musical.
No. But I mean, it might be lost to time. That was the thing that was funny. There were all these like TV adaptations that from the early days of TV, and literally the notes were like lost. Like just lost. Like we know it happened, but we don't know. The footage is gone.
Well, at least the book's not lost, thank God.
Yeah, I know.
Thank God.
Thank God. So yeah, some favorite lines. I want to be great or nothing. That's great, you know.
Relatable.
I don't pretend to be wise, but I am observant. The world is hard on ambitious girls. Things like that.
It's true.
Obviously, this was received pretty well. Because, I mean, this is one of those movies that I feel like it just came out, but that's because of the strange telescoping of time
that
has happened since the pandemic started.
Right, because this came out winter 2019.
2019 was like, it came out Christmas 2019. And I remember my sketch team, we did a sketch about it. And it's like, so I know it happened like at least that many years ago, but it feels like it just came out.
Yeah.
But it's like, this is now like 3 years in the past.
It's so crazy.
It's a little nuts.
The pandemic and all that. I know. The pandemic kind of, wasn't that crazy? Good thing
Past
it's over.
tense, right? Yeah. It's over now.
We're good.
Yeah, because this came out on Christmas 2019, the same weekend as Star Wars Rise of Skywalker. That was the big... Which one are you going to go see, Little Women or Star Wars? And also
Cats.
Cats was out.
Bitch.
Cats was out. Richard Jewell was out. Jumanji: The Next Level, Frozen 2, and Bombshell.
Wow.
Not a lot of great choices.
But I will actually, I got to say, both of the Jumanji movies are actually pretty solid. I like
the first one. But.
Yeah, the second one, I don't know, it wasn't that good, but if I was ranking these... Yeah. It probably would make the top 5.
Wow. Okay.
If I had to rank them, I'd put Jumanji 2, like...
All right.
I mean, I'd put it above Frozen 2. I'd put it above Rise of Skywalker. I'd put it above...
but not above Little Women.
No, I wouldn't put it above Little Women, but I wouldn't put Little Women above Cats. So
All right. Well, we now have our scale established.
Oh, man. Long live Cats.
Yes, that was a rough one.
They got my money.
As rough as a cat's tongue. This movie, Little Women, not Cats, was nominated for 6 Academy Awards. Adapted screenplay. They should have won. That should have won. Like,
for Little Women? Yeah. What won instead?
I don't know.
Oh, wait. Isn't this the same Promising Young Woman year?
Well, it was the 92nd. So it would have been it would have been 2020. It was the last Oscars before everything fell apart. I don't know. I can't remember what else was happening because maybe it was the same year. I don't know. No, it wasn't because the next year they had a weird small table situation. I remember because I watched what's her name give her speech. Mm-hmm. Anyway, whatever. It doesn't matter. Point is, best adapted screenplay, best picture, best actress for Saoirse Ronan, best supporting actress for Florence Pugh, or best original score, best in costume design. They won best costume design.
There you go.
A lot of effort. AFI named it as a top 10 film of the year. And I don't have a ton of reviews, just a few brief ones. The New Yorker called it a work of poetic smuggling. That's a good thing. I just didn't want to write it all out. The Observer in the UK said 150-year-old literature never felt so alive. And Bitch Media said, moments like these are reminders of the urgency of text and how rewarding it can be for contemporary audience to re-examine classic stories that we read in childhood.
R.I.P. bitch.
I know. This is such a sad day.
That quote, like...
I know. Like, the urgency of text.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the rest of...
What a day. What a life.
What a fucking country. I know, it's tough to talk about women's stuff. I mean, I hate this phrase, more relevant than ever. I'm so tired of that, too. And I've used it today. A few notes about Greta. Greta Celeste Gerwig was born August 4th, 1983 in Sacramento, California. She's the daughter of...
I was born in Sacramento.
What? Oh my God. Ding, 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 ding. Sacramento bells.
Greta Gerwig, we could talk about both being born in Sacramento and stuff.
So much to talk about.
I don't remember anything about Sacramento because I grew up in Cucamonga.
You can compare birth certificates. It'll be fun.
Cool.
Gerwig is the daughter of an OBGYN nurse and a credit union loan officer. Feels like such a hippie California family. I mean that in the best possible way. Her brother is a landscape architect, and her sister is a manager at the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. So His family feels like they're,
very like standard like American families.
But like it seems like they're involved in good shit
and good, in
helping real people.
This is a real.
Yeah, they were
very. For the people.
And yes.
Which is like Little Women.
It is.
Yeah.
Gerwig was raised Unitarian, just to further this theme. Mm-hmm. However, she did attend a all-girls Catholic school called St. Francis High School. So that's where the whole Lady Bird, right, is sort of set in that sort of a setting. She studied dance and for a little while competitive fencing.
Interesting.
I guess it was too expensive to keep going, but I love picturing her as a competitive fencer. Any woman as a competitive fencer, I want to see. She pursued a degree in English and philosophy from Barnard College, and her roommate at that time was Kate McKinnon.
Oh, there you go.
They were dorm mates.
Aw.
What the hell?
Are they still friends?
I don't know.
Interesting.
Gerwig used to perform at the Columbia University Variety Show. She then appeared in Joe Swanberg's LOL and then Jay and Mark Duplass's Baghead. So she started appearing in these mumblecore films.
Yeah.
She really wanted to write. She was trying to get into a playwriting program, but no one was accepting her. And she so many of the things that she ended up being in, she helped write or eventually helped co-direct. Like, she's always been interested and involved in that. And that's really fucking cool. She helped co-write Hannah Takes the Stairs, Nights and Weekends. I think those were both with Swanberg. No, maybe those were someone else. Shit. Anyway, someone can correct me. In 2010, she was in Greenberg. That I think was the first time she was in a film with directed by Noah Baumbach.
Yeah.
And of course, the two of them are in a relationship. And
are they still?
They're together, I think. Maybe they split.
Marriage Story isn't about their divorce.
It isn't? Oh,
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, the point is, she was a mumblecore it girl, like she
Maybe
was.
It wasn't about them.
I don't know. Gerwig was like, really involved in this like indie world and just kind of became this little star, but she wasn't getting commercial success. She did Greenberg. She did a voice on China, Illinois on Adult Swim. She was in a Woody Allen movie in 2012, which I'm like, uh-oh, you were desperate.
But I think she did like denounce him.
She did, but you know what I'm saying.
Which like everybody had to do. I don't know.
I know.
I got thoughts on some of that.
There's a part of me that's like, he made a fucking movie every year, and I get, maybe you're just like, I just needed something, and I'll work with, I get it. Mistress America, Isle of Dogs. But of course, really, I think...
Oh, it was his divorce from Jennifer Jason Leigh. Just kidding. Sorry.
Okay. Then.
Wait, I'm sorry. I'm just...
Issuing a correction.
I spread misinformation on my podcast much.
Well, I'm glad we got to the bottom of that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, they are together.
Yeah.
Oh, I made a boo-boo.
Well, I don't know. A lot of people split up during pandemic. So
my bad. I don't know. I think because Scarlett Johansson's haircut, I think of Greta Gerwig.
It's a good haircut.
Okay.
I think for me, the first time I saw Greta Gerwig, and I'm not ashamed to admit this in anything, was that an episode of Portlandia.
Oh, yeah?
She plays like a mermaid in an episode called Doug Becomes a Feminist.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if I remember that.
She's like in a kiddie pool. They're trying to like film this intense feminist thing. I don't know. It all fits in the theme of the episode.
Yeah.
But, I didn't know who she was.
Yeah.
And somebody explained to me, oh, that's Greta Gerwig. And I'm like, oh, who? Like,
interesting. Yeah. I think the first time I'd seen her was in Greenberg. And I remember watching, because that movie starts, the opening credits is her as an assistant doing all these
walking
tasks
the dog.
and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to watch that movie.
Yeah.
And then it cut, and then you're with Ben Stiller for the rest of it. And I was like, oh.
I know.
And then, but then Frances Ha is basically that.
Well,
so
yeah,
I was like, oh, okay.
I was going to say, Frances Ha was probably the next thing I saw of hers. And I know that was like co-directed and co-written with Noah Baumbach. And it is such like mumblecore. And by that, I mean, like, because sometimes that term gets thrown around a lot. It's just like we're talking about a brand of indie movies that are low budget, dialogue focused, and usually about the concerns and trials of one in their 20s or 30s.
Yeah.
The Duplass brothers came from that kind of a discipline.
And
I don't actually like the term mumblecore. I think it's just filmmaking. But this is she comes out of this very kind of cool, story interested, character driven stuff, which is what we need. So there's a really petty part of me that really wants to hate her because I envy her.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to admit that.
I mean, Frances Ha is like one of those, is a very relatable, like, oh man.
I liked it so much.
Yeah.
I mean, a part of me, I think when I first watched it was like, oh, so she just had to figure out she had to move further out, But I think that whole thing about like living with artists whose parents are rich and trying to punch so high above your own weight and not realize you're just like, no, you have a lot of suffering to go through. And,
just being able to sort of accept where you are and be able to move forward. Yeah. Because when there's that dissonance, and I'm still struggling with that, or I'm still trying to work on it, that ideal of what you would like to be doing or where you would like to be, and that frustration of not attaining that. And then simultaneously, you're like you're not taking the practical steps, like like she also wasn't really going anywhere. She was kind of just like spinning her wheels.
Exactly. It takes her not letting go of a dream, but she's not like getting accepted as the dancer in these companies, but people are like, oh, but you should choreograph. You should do the more creative thing anyway.
I guess it's a story in a sense. It's like,
I think it's about like
not quite settling, but it's
like being able to be realistic enough and self-aware enough to know what your limitations are and not like think of them that way. Maybe like
like reconciling.
Yeah, like understanding like, okay, I can't do this, but I can do this.
Yeah,
and I don't have to be the body that shows the message necessarily. I can make the message. Yeah, and others can deliver it.
Yeah. Jo March didn't do that though.
No.
Jo March got what she wanted.
No, she
actually no.
Got exactly what she wanted. Would you watch this again?
I don't think I would rush to put it on.
I wouldn't rush either.
But I would probably, if it was on, I would get engrossed.
Yeah.
I would probably like get sucked into it. If it was casually playing on a TV, I'd be like, oh, this scene, and I'm in.
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny to me that like it came out on Christmas, because I remember that cover of the 1994 version had snow on it, and it's like I always thought of this as a Christmas movie because there's like scenes at Christmas. Right. There's a Christmas scene, and it still feels like a Christmas movie. Like I feel like I would watch it on Christmas.
Because it's cold.
Yeah.
Everybody's all bundled up.
That's what Massachusetts does.
People get sick, and it's a very winter kind of thing, when people get sick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just sipping water.
All right.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for listening. You can follow, all that shit.
Oh, yeah. Bye.
We got to go.